Hello and welcome to today's web exclusive demonstration featuring the wonderful collection that is Rose Blossom Cottage. So today we're mixing it up a little bit. Normally what you see within these demonstrations is a card from start to finish. And while yes, absolutely, we will still be making a card and giving you inspiration in that sense, what we're trying to include within our demonstrations now is a focus technique. Now when we saw this collection come in, and by the way, it is absolutely gorgeous, we were really struck with how wonderfully a collection like this lends itself to decoupage. So I thought, what better way to start with our new kind of look when it comes to our web demonstrations with starting with a technique. So we're going to look at decoupage in this one. So in front of me, I've already got the dies all cut ready to go, but I will be cutting a few within this workshop too. I'm going to start with a base, okay? And what I want to show you first off is how a card looks that we can send through the post, something really, really flat. If you want that kind of look, we can absolutely do that with this collection. So we're starting with one of the scenes, and you'll notice this scene is the one without the cottage, okay? If we then start choosing our die cut, so the wonderful Rose Blossom Cottage like so, placing that into the scene. Because you've got that background, it instantly gives you a place and a time for this. This is early afternoon, this is summer hazy days, beautiful little backdrop, that little blur to it makes it look a little bit more abstract, which means the cottage itself really, really pops. We also then have the archways. So again, if we bring that into the foreground, we can place that across if we wanted to, the house itself, the cottage itself, and again, drawing in that world and giving you that detail. We've also then got further dies. Now these are beautiful. I know the whole team have been saying how much they love these beautiful, beautiful roses. We've got them available in a couple of different colorways, available for purchase on our website, Highlight Crafts, as well. But look how we can create even more focus to the front of the card by placing just a couple around. Let me just nudge that little cottage back into the right place. Just around and in front of the archway there. And again, you're nestling in your design. The beautiful colours of these florals just really make them pop. Maybe we want to then add a couple to the top corner. So you're softening the corners of the card design here. You're giving it a little bit of detail. Perhaps we want to trail it down. You've got different sizes of the floral to trail it down and around. Maybe you want to even further embellish the corner like so, lifting and tucking to create your little piece, okay? So that in itself could absolutely be stuck down and create a card front. There's nothing wrong with that. It gives you an option if you want to send something flat, for example, through the post. However, look how we can then transform this particular design by using the grounding devices that are included within the Rose Blossom Cottage die set itself, but also how we can add texture by decoupaging these layers, okay? So let's just remove our flowers for the minute. Let's remove our cottage and start again with our blank slate, our little background design here. When we're placing the cottage in, as it's placed, it does work, it looks fine, but we can add to this, we can add more detailing. We also have the dies included, let me just grab them, that can create a grounding device. So these little designs here, hedgerows and grounding, okay? Let's just take the sort of slimmer little grass design, offer it up to our front of our card, just checking the placement, and using a little bit of repositionable tape, we're going to cut into our cardstock here. Repositionable tape, we're going to make sure it's not too sticky, so just tacking it off on our clothing, just so it removes a lot of that sticky. And I'm just going to line this up to make sure we can cut all the way across the front of this card with ease, okay? So we can absolutely do that. I'm going to start at one side. I'm going to tape my little die in place, and then I'm just going to check the length of the die for what we need to cut to nestle this house in here like so. So let's take our die cutting plates, and it's just the normal sandwich you would use in your combination for your slimline dies. Just layer that up and run it through my die cutting machine. This is going to create a little tuck-in, and this is the first part of the decoupage, okay? So decoupage is all about building the layers, it's all about building the detailing, it's about giving a really wonderful sense of depth and dimension for the design here as well. So that's just cutting through for us now. And we're going to have to cut it again, just so we can ensure that we've got the length of the card needed for making our house sit in the background. Gently peel away the repositionable tape. I know it's low tack, but you just have to be careful because when you run it through your machine, it often ends up being quite tacky as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the die, because it's going to sit over the edge of the card, I'm going to hide this side with a few flowers. So we're not cutting all the way in the sense that it will cut off this side. It will keep everything in place, but the other side will be open. And that's just the nature of the die itself. It's a little bit longer when we put two together, like so, and cut that again. So what we're doing here is creating the grounding devices. We're cutting into that scenic background, pulling it into the foreground and making the house nestle into our, basically what would have been a flat design, into something that's a little bit more three-dimensional to the eye. Okay, let me just pop that to one side and show you. So it has cut all the way through, again gently easing the repositionable tape away, like so, and then just popping my die back before I place it somewhere else. So now we have got this opening. We are going to then close the card afterwards, but this little opening ensures we can take our little house and look how that now looks like it is set in the scene. These lawns, these grasses are coming forwards in the design. It's a little bit of an optical illusion. If we just pop it on as is, it does look like it's floating a little bit. As soon as we place it behind, now you've got the look of that being pushed back into the distance and these grasses coming forward. We're going to go ahead and stick our first layer for our decoupage there. I'm using Pinflair bookbinding glue, nice flat adhesive to make sure the layers all just stick nice and flat together. Just lifting that foreground and tucking in like so, trying to get that house a little bit, that little cottage, central to the design itself. Just nudging it over a little ways. And once we're happy, smoothing that all down into place. At this stage, what I am going to do, I'm going to close up that cut just by sticking this little edge together. If I was at home, I'd probably cut another piece of card, the same size as my background there, and have that to lay over the top. So it disguises any workings and makes everything look a lot neater. But just for the purpose of demonstration, if I just close this up as it is, at least you can still see my workings and see how this all comes together. If you wanted added security, you can run a piece of red liner tape across that cut as well. But now our card is all joined up again too. Right, so again, the house looks lovely as is, but what about if we wanted to add detail? What if we wanted to decoupage up the house itself? You've got plenty of cut line details here to follow to bring this all into sharp focus. All we need to do is select what would be in the foreground, what would be more prominent, say, in your design. Follow the cut line details that have already been laid down using our scissors, round, and just trimming. So you'll find, because you've got that cut line detail, your scissors will travel along the cut lines. When you get to a pip, the little bridges, if you like, between the artwork, you can just follow that around and it will release this section of the artwork too. Just follow those pips all the way along, like so. So now we've got one roof, okay? What's wonderful about adding in decoupage detailing is we can absolutely use this as foreground as well from that same die cut, okay? So there's no wastage. We're using just one image that we've printed and cut and snipping into it to create both layers of decoupage for our rose cottage. So again, just going around, trimming out where the foreground would be in this little bush, for example, following the cut line details and easily just adding in to that design. Just taking our time around the little detailed bits. And again, this is going to add even more placement. It's going to add even more grounding to the design. Where you get to areas where you've got sort of the grass and things like that, don't be too worried about cutting it out exactly. Again, you've got the cut line details to follow, but even if you get a little bit of the background into there where it's very, very fine, it won't matter because it won't show. When we come to layer it up, it will all look like it's merging into one piece into the foreground there. So just around those little details all the way around, like so, just trimming away that little bit that wants to come free. And now, once again, we can lift and tuck, but we can give a little bit of lift to that using either foam tape or we can use pin flare glue gel. Before we stick our decoupage layers, what we want to do is give them a little bit of rounding. Now I'm just looking, because normally I round these off with the end of my pokey tool because I always have it to hand, but I wanted to show you a little bit of sculpting and a little bit of detailing with our ball tool and foam mats here. So select a medium-sized ball tool and work from the centre, gently rounding that central bit of the roof out. When it comes to the edges, switch down to a smaller, and that just encourages the edges to fold over, to curl over even more, just giving them a little bit of shaping. Look to the artwork, look to the detail, look to the design to see where you would add in your shaping. Here, where you've got those little turrets, if you like, coming over the tops of the roof, you can use your thumb and forefinger just to shape those even further. To maintain that height we've just created in our decoupage layer, my personal preference is pin flare glue gel, just simply because it gives you an undulation of height. Rather than just one layer, you can change things up by loading it and layering it so. The finer areas, I'm going to go in with a little bit of bookbinding glue. So it's going to be a very, very small decoupage because you've got the detailing on the roof itself. But look how just by using those little anchor points, the bookbinding glue, you've still got decoupage on the slimmer details, the slimmer design, but then you've got more detailing and more decoupage on the roof itself. So you're giving it a little bit of depth, just like so. Same thing with the hedgerow here. Let's just round that off. A little bit of rounding. Again, I've gone straight back to my pokey tool because, as I say, it's to hand. If it's there, I'm going to use it, and I always have my pokey tools to hand. I'm going to use my tweezers just to place this in so I don't get glue absolutely everywhere. It keeps me a little bit more hands-free and allows me to go in, lift that little cut in we've just made and tuck the hedges behind. Okay, so this is instantly going to not only give you lift and dimension to your decoupage in the background, but it's also instantly giving you a little bit of lift and detailing to the foreground because it's pushing that little slot that we've made forwards as well. So you're giving double benefit there for the decoupage layers. So there we have our house. We could go further. You could add even more to the roof if you wanted to. The choice is yours. What we've also then got is, of course, the archway. And we've got our beautiful sort of hedgerows, tree lines. These could be anything, grasses in the foreground. We're going to add both of these in as well. So we're going to go in with our archway. I think it's quite nice having it central to the design, but I just wanted to show you, you can take, oh, if I pick it up, there we go. You can take another section of this, trim away the archway, for example, just undulate a little bit. So what I'm doing here, I'm making it look a little bit less straight, just by taking my scissors and rounding those areas off. Because now, if we just pop that behind that side, I think that actually looks quite fun. Should we do that? Let's have them both on there. You've got the archway in the middle of the card and the fences drawing out over either side as well. For these, I'm going to stick them again using pin flare bookbinding glue. So these are going to go slightly into the background as we come in and add more to the foreground too. So let's stick the one side, getting that arch nice and central. I'm going to let it overhang the edge of the card. I'm not going to really push down because I want a little bit of control over finishing this and placing it so it's all lined up. Poke away any excess, and again a little bit of bookbinding glue just along so we can come in, eyeball where that would come across and line up like so. Make sure that's all central and then just stick that arch into place. Now this overhangs the card both sides. Again, it's personal preference. We can trim that down, and I think I will for this purpose of this demonstration. This little hedgerow wants to escape, so I'm just going to poke him back down using my pokey tool and make sure that fence on that side is secure as well. If we're looking to trim things down, the easiest way to do so is take it, turn your project over and use the back edge as a guide. That way you're going to get it nice and straight and everything's going to work in keeping with the edge of the card, like so. So now they're contained within the edge of the card too. Furthermore, we have got these wonderful sort of grasses and things that we can use as a foreground and to ground our archway in place. As we've mentioned, and as you've seen, they cut into the card. So what we need to do is trim them away just with a pair of scissors. We don't have to be too precise over this, but this just gives us a little bit of something. And of course you've got that bottom edge. You can always stick this first on your card as we've just done and trim down afterwards. It might be that we need to neaten it up or make it sit within the design a little bit more, but we can absolutely do that. But look how we can take things, again, have it coming over the edge of the card and have that further decoupaged as well. Now I'm going to grab this one, foam tape. So point of difference between layering with pin flare glue gel and of course foam tape. Pin flare allows you that undulation. It allows you to build up in certain areas, different heights, and gives you more of a natural finish. So something that would be curved is really great for using pin flare on. Something where I just want quite a straight decoupage, a straight height if you like, I tend to use foam tape on this, trim down so I have control over where things are then placed. It's going to come in probably there, like so. And I think on this side we might have even more in the foreground in the sense of this hedgerow as well. So again, layering and decoupaging up, switching to my big scissors if I am sticking a big piece, cutting a big piece, sorry, like so. So this could be behind, this could be in front, you know, look how we can place that behind the gateway. You know, there's options there. It could come over this side, you could add in even more detailing like so, and in fact I think we'll build up on the hedgerow on this side. So again, let's go in with a little bit of foam tape, just offering it up and seeing how that then sits. Again, not trimming anything until we're happy, just creating a little bit of design there. Now obviously we've got two very straight edges going on in this design, so we can easily adjust that up. Let me just trim down these two, like so. A number of ways of doing that. We could come in and add in a little bit of coming over the edge. We could trim this down, we could add detailing. We also have a little bit of grass that we could go in and use. So we'll just trim this away and see how that looks, just to come in and just soften those straight edges there as well. So let's just see where we want to place, whether we want to come around this way, or whether we want to use perhaps something from here as well. This doesn't matter too much because essentially what we will be doing is covering a lot of this decoupage with further decoupage in the form of the roses as well, but something just to soften and something to add in more decoupage detail to the front is quite sweet. I think for the moment I'm going to leave that out. I'm going to have it to hand, and I think what we'd like to do is head on over to our roses. Look how we can start creating detail with these. So once again, I will use my foam pad. Now, when it comes to decoupaging flowers and things like that, slightly different technique than what we would do for the background. You want to look to the artwork and think, okay, is it coming towards me or is it going away from me? If it's going away, you want to then round it off on the back. But here, these petals are curving forwards. So this time we're going to use our ball tool, on the front of our card design. This one, just then rounding off those flowers. Okay, so there we've got the flowers, but of course we want to be decoupaging these up. So let's take another pen and trim away just the florals. Adding in this decoupage technique then starts really bringing the attention to these elements. If you want more eyes on the florals of your card, decoupage up the buds, decoupage up the flower heads. Take the time to cut out a couple of layers of these as well, just following this cut line details. Look to what would be in the foreground, look to what would be pushed into the background, and start coming in, trimming away, rounding off, and detailing like so. All of the little leaves and things like that we can absolutely use in projects. We can use those to just add in as tuck-ins. But here, cutting those buds away, rounding those flowers as you've just seen me do. So using that ball tool, pressing into that foam mat, letting that paper curl round. Because you've got those cut line details, it allows the paper movement and it allows the formation of those curls. Now, when we place our rose to the foreground of our card like so, it really does look lovely and prominent. So a little bit of glue gel on the back because we want that nice rounded feel to our card. Just checking for placement as to where it would sit. Using the roses there to just mask where we've got a straight line of the card itself. And then our decoupage layer, same again, just centrally to where we've rounded to really heighten that design. And look how that comes together so, so beautifully. Let's add in one of the smaller florals. We're not going to decoupage this layer because we want more of the focus on the larger layers there, but just rounding off and rounding off. And this one can come sweeping across where we've got those straight lines. And you see how now you're instantly creating this design whereby those straight lines go to the background. You're not noticing they are being masked by the florals themselves. Same thing, treat them in the same way you do with the larger flowers there. Just coming over the top of the design. And what we want to do is create like a little hub of these florals. So a great way of doing that is mixing up the colours. Of course, what we can do when it comes to decoupage is come in, cut into these and use just one or two of the flowers as well. So snip away wherever needed. Got a little bit sticky on my scissors there. And just use one or two. And again, the idea of the decoupage is to give you this sense of dimension. Look to your design and think, okay, where would the foreground be? Where would I need to add height? And then give that decoupage that placement it deserves. A little bit of rounding for this floral as well. We can give a little bit of sculpting to the leaves. We can add a little bit of detail into that by running them and tweaking them over my poke tool. You've seen me do this on many occasions. And let's tuck that in behind that first rose, again using our glue, lifting and tucking like so. Let's just come over the front of those smaller leaves, smaller florals. So you're almost creating like a little spray. So then we're kind of loading this side. We want to come up round the side of our florals there as well. So let's just grab another one of our beautiful florals, rounding them off, poking away any of the excess cuts, tweaking the leaves and detailing. And I mean, the list goes on. We can sit and continue to decoupage these up for a while. You want to make it look like the rose is kind of climbing around the side of the card. A little bit of glue again, and just to repeat that decoupage step so you get a really good view of how we achieve that. Let's cut just one of these little florals as well, because I think it does serve well to build up that layers, build up that decoupage and give you that sense of depth in the design as well. A little bit of trim there around, again just following that cut line detail, trimming away those leaves. Again, remember the leaves can be used for another project, for another day. Just moving the die cut itself. You see I keep the scissors in the same position and I'm just moving the die cut itself. It gives you a little bit more control over placement and it gives you a more curved edge. And speaking of curves, let's just do a little bit of detailing on here. Now the trick to decoupage is just go for it. If you've never done it before, have a play, have a try. As we've said, look to the artwork itself, look to where the foreground, the background would be, for example, and really have a little bit of fun layering it. Look how that's coming, it's popping from the front of the card. Let's go in and just balance up. We've got a white rose coming down here. Let's soften this corner of our card with just another white rose. It adds into the story, it tells it adds in detail, it kind of gives the brain a point of difference, okay? So again, just offering that up, seeing where we'd need for placement, where your glue would sit, and a little bit of glue just on that one edge, excuse me a little bit, just a little bit like so, lifting and tucking, again, softening that edge like so. So that's how our card's coming together. Again, it could just be as is. We could pop that on the front of a card, for example, and that looks really, really pretty with these beautiful florals there. But we do want to pay homage to our beautiful ducks, Doris and Derek. They just make me giggle. I think they're such a lot of fun. Again, you've got options with this. Now, of course, I'm using these elements all within the same collection, all within Rose Blossom Cottage, but you could absolutely mix it up and introduce these into other elements. If you wanted your duck to be front and center of your design, remember what we've said. Use the large piece and then decoupage up the detail, the body, then the wing, and you could have him flying across your flowers like so, either one. I mean, that looks quite fun, doesn't it, with the wings outspread like so. I think what we'll do is tell a little bit of a story. We'll have our little ducks in the background, flying in front of Rose Blossom Cottage. Let's take them like so. So these, because they're in the distance, they're not the focus. We're not going to add lots and lots of decoupage layers. We're just going to lay them over the scene itself. As they're going into the background, let's use our bookbinding glue, just a little bit like so, and have them almost in this wonderful sense of movement. I'm having them purposely come over the edge of the roof there of Rose Blossom Cottage, so it really looks like a moment in time. They're just caught in flight. We can shape his little wing just slightly, not too much, as he's in the background, just a little bit of detailing, like so. And he could be trailing behind, couldn't he? Maybe he's coming in front of the chimney stack, the chimney pots there. Again, to tell that story, we can put even more impact on our beautiful ducky ducks. Once again, shaping. Just using a ball tool, shaping through those beautiful wings, and of course his little tummy there as well, a little bit on his head. Again, looking to see how this would shape, how this would be in real life. And let's have him nestled amongst the florals, because I think that's quite fun. So let's just see. Tilting him a little bit makes it look like he's just taken off from the pond. Perhaps the pond's over here somewhere. Again, it tells that story. And he's following his little mates that have gone up to the foreground there. So a little bit of glue gel just on the point where, I'm guessing this one is Derek. Derek would be attached to the floral like so. But of course now he looks flat in comparison to the flowers that are coming forward. So let's give him a little bit of detailing as well. So look to the die cut, oops, excuse me, little duck. His wing would obviously be in the background and this little foot would be in the background. So let's trim those away to create our decoupage to the foreground. Again, following those cut line details, shaping as we go. Don't forget that little foot, that would be in the background there as well. So you're left with the body, the head, and of course that one outstretched wing as well, rounding that through. Just tweaking that ring, really pulling that wing forward and shaping that further with your thumb and forefinger. We can load our decoupage glue behind that wing. So again, if you want to load it, just loop it over a little bit to give it more height through the body there as well. Again, I'm going to use my tweezers before I get into a sticky situation. Then lay your decoupage layer down, and what we can do is just tweak his little head so he's all in line. Instantly you've created your dimension. Now he is still drying, so let's just be very careful as we lift and show you the depth on this. But look how, if I just tilt that, you've got all of those decoupage layers coming into play with the roses at the bottom there, really drawing the eye from the front of the card. Of course it starts in the background with that roof, and if I can, just hold Derek, you can see there you've got your detailing for your decoupage layers on Derek as well. So that gives you a little overview of not only Rose Blossom Cottage, but how we create decoupage in our designs. This could go on a card front, this could be home decor, it could be any way you'd like to use it. I hope you have enjoyed today's demonstration, and I shall see you again very soon.
If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below, and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all of our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.